Hi, Tom. Hi, everybody. Thanks for jumping on. Today's going to be good about Leipzig in Germany. And I've got to say that IPG have got a very good record of bringing great German projects to us over the years. I can't remember when your first project was, but I'm probably going to go back to 2017. Tom, no doubt. So Tom heads up South Africa. Welcome, Tom. Welcome to the webinar. Welcome, everybody. We're going to go fly through this and get all the information out as quickly as possible. So how are you, Tom? Are you all good?
Very well, thanks, Chris. Thank you very much for having me on. Yes, we'll fly through it, but just a reminder to everyone that, as usual, our brochure contains a huge amount of information. So I can't go through everything as much as I'd like to. So it will just really be sticking to topic.
Thanks, Tom. Right, first slide.
Okay, well, just quick agenda. So just German experience. As you said, we've done a lot in Germany, so I just want to cover that. Then move on to the Leipzig investment case, and then on to the actual opportunity itself, Curey Park, or Curey Park, and then just some updates, recent quotes from some of the big institutions, and then just a summary at the end and USPs with regards to Leipzig. So without further ado, just a reminder to all, our track record speaks for itself. IP Global's been trading since 2006, and we've done well over $3 billion worth of property across 18 countries, 42 cities. But really what I wanted to show here was Germany. We've done 23 projects, so this will be the 24th since 2014, Chris. So there we have it.
I got that wrong, didn't I?
Yes, but you were close. And a total investment value of $154 million US. So just having a look, we started off in Berlin initially, and then, not unlike London, when prices start becoming very expensive, we did do the ripple effect and move slightly outwards. But we also decided that Leipzig, which is actually referred to by the Germans as Little Berlin, was also a fantastic opportunity. So over the last 4 years, we've done 7 different projects in Leipzig, this being the 8th. But let's just start off with just having a look at Germany, because I know a lot of people are very familiar with the UK investment market and the UK itself, and Germany sometimes comes from left field. So let's just fly through the overview of it. Population of 83.2 million. Over the last 10 years, they've had an inward migration of 4.5 million, a lot of educated individuals coming through. They've got a work population of estimated 54 million, but ranked 4th in the world for R&D. It's got the 4th largest economy in the world at 3.65 trillion. Which actually equates to 930 billion euros more than the UK, which some people may be surprised at. 3rd largest exporter in the world, again, a little figure that some people will be surprised at. And then high net worth individuals forecasted by 2026 to be 5.3 million, which will be the 4th largest amount of high net worth individuals in the world in any particular country. But the big one here is really the housing supply and demand imbalance, and that's currently standing at a 1 million deficit. So before I get into Leipzig and the investment case, just a quick introduction on what's so unique and why IP Global as a company have concentrated on Berlin and Leipzig. And it's really to do with, as this picture tells 1,000 stories, the wall coming down, and with that was a max exodus from places like Berlin and Leipzig, 2 of the biggest cities in East Germany. And that had a devastating effect on the economy and also on the housing market. So what you've got is a very unique investment case where the economies went down massively, and so did property prices. So that's something to bear in mind, which makes the investment case. Otherwise, the investment case, we'll be looking at the fundamentals, as we always do, remains similar to everywhere else that we look at. So having a look at exactly how Leipzig is performed, and I've also highlighted Berlin just as a reference, but these are the we're looking at the 8 largest cities in Germany and GDP growth between 2000 and 2035. So Leipzig was actually first and Berlin second over the last from 2000 to 2020 with 102% growth. And the forecast going forward up to 2035, Leipzig has got a 74% forecast, and that is only superseded by Berlin at 82%. So massive cities, as you can all see there, the likes of Munich, Stuttgart, Frankfurt, Düsseldorf. So that's a big thing.
And a new spelling for German as well. I didn't know that they corrected their spelling. Well done.
Yes,
nice.
That's thank you for pointing that out.
That's okay. You carry
on. So really looking at the key factors, and I'm going to go through a couple of them in a bit more detail, but not too much. But really, huge population growth since 2000, with a massive forecast going forward. But obviously, when we're looking at anything, when we're putting together an investment case, we're looking at the imbalance between supply and demand. And currently, there's a massive undersupply. And that, even if they were to build as many as they predict, that would still remain at that sort of level, just over 10,000 by 2040. And that's obviously has a major effect on property prices. It's had a very strong price growth. And obviously, as we've already referred to, the GDP has done tremendously well. And looking forward, over the next 15 years, like I said earlier on, should come second to Berlin. The economy itself, 26 billion as of 2022, and that's forecast to by 2040 to go all the way up to 48 billion, so almost doubling within the next 18 years, which is a huge increase. So what did Leipzig do? Well, when they reinvented themselves after the wall came down and the dust settled, they really, from an economy point of view, they wanted to concentrate on 5 core areas, and that was health, care and biotech, logistics, media and creative industries, the automotive and suppliers, and then energy and environment. So the figures speak for themselves. I don't want to, like I say, I don't want to spend too much time going into too much detail, but as you can see, huge increases in all those sectors. And this really underpinned and really is the reason behind Leipzig's economy doing so well and continue to be forecast for the next 15 years to do incredibly well. And really just the graph, which shows it in format where you see this massive increase, but also a massive reduction in the unemployment rate. So going back to 2005, when it was at its worst, that was a 21% unemployment rate. That has fallen all the way below 5%. And is forecast by 2040 to be at 4%. So that's hugely beneficial. And then disposable household disposable income, and that's a key factor, and it has been a key factor, especially during increase in interest rates and this inflation that we're experiencing. It is something that we look at closely, and we've given a little bit more weighting to than we may have done in the past. So very strong figures on the household disposable income. But the supply and demand is what it all comes down to. Ultimately, there are other factors that are always going to have an effect, like connectivity, to name one. But supply and demand is really where it's at. And unfortunately, due to the arduous planning permission that Germany has to go through and how long it takes in order to for planning to be granted, and also due to the lack of space that's available for new buildings, the deficit is, as I said earlier, it's over 10,000, and it's going to remain at that sort of level all the way to 2040. And that's really is going to underpin why the market's going to continue to go up. But the other factor really is that it's still an undervalued market. Both Leipzig and Berlin, when you look at the property prices and you compare them against other major cities in Germany and across Europe and the world, when looking at similar ilk cities and you compare the prices, they are still very undervalued. So any reduction in prices, and actually Leipzig has pretty much experienced no reduction, is going to be limited during these times of inflation and high interest rates, and that really is one of the reasons why we continue to look at Leipzig and Berlin for opportunities. Now, one of the things, and Chris, you're familiar with this, and I think some investors certainly have come across this, is it's so important to be dealing with the right developer. And BEKA Immobillien, they are a developer that we've dealt with on 2 previous occasions. But for me, one of the most important stats is the fact that they are a family-owned business. They've been around since the early 1990s. You know, we've had huge success from the 2 previous projects, but you know, they are incredibly well known within Leipzig. They've done a huge amount of developments, and you know, they really are very close to Leipzig as a city. It's, you know, their families before them, generations have lived in Leipzig, so it means a lot to them. So you know, they treat all opportunities with a huge amount of love and affection, and obviously deliver very high standards. But most importantly, I mean, that's all well and good, but it's a developer that has a very high standard of end product, and also is a developer that delivers the product on time. And I think those are 2 very important factors when looking at anything that's either off plan or even a refurbishment, which this is. So moving on to the actual development itself, Curey Park, it's a boutique residence, 9 high-spec studios and 1-bedroom apartments. So there's actually only 1 studio, the rest of the 1-beds, and there is 1 2-bed. Lovely neighbourhood in Lindenau, which is on the west side of Leipzig, and I'll show you some more details on this. But as you can see here, we've got a total number of units of 9, 1 studio, 7 1-beds and a 2-bed. This is due to complete on the 30th of April 2024, so about a year from now. It's freehold, and you can expect the rental yields to be around about 4.88%. Now, that is something just very quickly, yields are going up, and if there was any, you know, sort of criticism that, and that's a harsh word, but if people were slightly in doubt about places like Leipzig and Berlin, it would be because the yields were just on the slightly on the low side, which is actually made up for on other factors, but they are definitely increasing.
You mentioned, Tom, that it's a refit, or it's got a year to go. What was the building before?
So it was still residential, but what's happening now in there's a Building Energy Act which has come into place, and that came back in 2020. But as we all know, energy efficiency and everything, global warming is sort of the key word, and what people are really looking to do is make buildings as energy efficient as possible. But most importantly, in Berlin and throughout Germany and Leipzig, there is a requirement that there is no more gas and oil heating for any properties as from 2024. So there are a lot of old build properties which need to be up-spec'd and comply with the new regulations. So that's why both the new build and the renovation of old buildings is where a lot of concentration of funds, but also of investors and tenants and buyers alike, because those that own old properties that need to be upgraded, although there will be some benefits and there will be some help, it's still going to cost a lot of money to upgrade them to the ratings that are required, which has to be D or better. So, you know, total refurb of an existing building. Again, this is just the map where it is, as you can see, Leipzig city centre. So we're looking at how, you know, well connected it is, 15 minutes into the center of Leipzig, a very bicycle friendly city. Actually next month, I believe they have the European Bicycle Gathering. So they've done a lot to improve the connectivity for cyclists, but the trams and other public transport are extremely good, and it's a very well located building. So just some CGIs just to give you some views. So, you know, what the lounge would look like, the kitchen, CGI, that's computer generated image of the bedroom, and the bathroom. So as you can see, very high spec, very nicely finished apartments.
And I know that in Germany, unlike the UK, you have to provide your own kitchen. if you like. Is that the same here, or is it to come provided?
Yes, so that's a great question, Chris, and thanks for highlighting that. It's actually the kitchens come provided. So believe it or not, people in Germany take their kitchens with them when they move. And in new builds and even renovations, kitchens aren't normally supplied, but we have always negotiated with all developers, and it's included within the prices that kitchens are supplied, and the specs are given within the brochure. So a key point that.
Thank you.
So the floor plan, this is, I've just taken from the second floor, as you can see, you know, sort of symmetrical. These are 1 bedrooms. So just putting my cursor over it, this would be the one flat on the one floor, and on the same floor, the other flat. So entrance over here, the bathroom over there, kitchen, lounge area over here, and then bedroom. And then off the back of the kitchen are terraces, and actually they face south, which is preferable in the northern hemisphere. And then what I thought I'd do is I'd concentrate on one of the properties itself, because I think it's good for people to get some figures and see. But so WEO4, so apartment 4, 63 square meters. You can see the layout, very well proportioned rooms, as you can see, with the balcony at the back. And then looking at the figures themselves, so just flying through these quickly, we got a purchase price of 313,000 for this particular apartment. That's a 62% bond or mortgage, which works out at 194,000. And then the total equity, which is the difference between purchase price and the bond, and obviously costs as well, would work out to the investor would need to put in 166,000. Obviously the payment schedule below that, but within these, at that level of borrowing, it's cash positive from day one. So people tend to want to, on investments, be cash neutral if possible, and this certainly works out to be that. So the payment schedule itself, there's a reservation fee which is immediate. Then the lawyers, VPMK, will be in touch. They act on the buyer's behalf. They require half their fee paid up immediately. And then on notarization, which for people that are used to the English terminology, exchange of contracts, that is about 6 to 8 weeks after the reservation. And notarization in Germany, you actually become the legal owner. 3 months after notarization, and no sooner than 3 months after notarization, there will be an equity portion required at 30%. And then circa November, basing it on someone proceeding in the next few days, that will obviously change. You'd need to put in the remaining 8%. And then finally, on completion, further funds are required. So looking at that on a 10-year hold, and the reason why we base it on a 10-year hold is because there's no capital gains tax payable in Germany as long as you own the property for 10 years. So that, from a cash positive position from day one, which will obviously increase as the years go on, you're looking at an internal rate of return of 9.9% per annum, or 131% return on equity.
I just want to say one thing, going back, sorry, yeah, keep it on that slide. You are talking about a capital and repayment mortgage, aren't you?
Yes,
you are,
Chris.
yeah.
Thanks. Yes, thanks for highlighting that. It is. You don't have the option as you do in the UK to have an interest only. So this is principal and interest, and you know that it works out to still be cash positive.
And the reason I point that out, obviously, is you've already said you're in a cash flow positive situation of, it says 10 euros, but that is phenomenal in a market
Absolutely.
like this with a capital and interest mortgage. Interest only, yes, and obviously IPG have property in the UK, and they're all on our website, Holborn propertyinvestments.com. But yes, that is significant. That is really significant. I do like that. Sorry,
yes,
Tom.
Not at all, Chris. I'm grateful that you pointed that out, because as you said, interest only, it's easy to be cash positive. This is dragging on a bit, forgive me. I just wanted to quickly, it's important to know what the various big players in the market are saying. But essentially, without going through this whole quotes here, but there's a massive supply shortage, and they're definitely, Berlin and Leipzig are the two main cities in Germany where both the likes of Deutsche, CBRE, Knight Frank, all the big players expect that those are the two markets that will continue to move due to the fact that there is a supply shortage. And then finally, wrapping up, the key factors or USPs, but certainly undervalued property market, massive supply and demand imbalance, an incredibly low vacancy rate of below 2%, which is fantastic and something that people look at closely. A couple of benefits: pre-agreed mortgages. So the actual lender has agreed to the lending on this particular development. So they're happy with the pricing, they're happy with the security. It's just up to individuals to qualify, which normally not a problem. And currently that fixed rate that I've quoted, so the figures I worked out, was done on a 62% loan to value, and it was done on a 3.91% fixed rate for 10 years. So peace of mind, not worrying about what interest rates are going to do for that entire period, and fits in nicely with the no capital gains tax. And mentioning that, exceptional tax breaks, a minimal income tax, you can offset things like interest. There's depreciation of asset, although it's going up in value, but essentially you get to a situation where there's very little to no income tax. And then the big one, no capital gains tax payable in Germany once you've owned it for 10 years. That 10 years starts at notarization, not from when it completes. And then buyer protection. And I think people that are adverse, that do like off-plan property, but one thing they worry about is maybe how, to a degree, they may find it risky. The fact that mortgages are pre-approved, the fact that there are long stop dates, which means that if the developer doesn't complete it by a certain date, you will be paid rental per square meter by the developer. All these factors come into play and make this investment opportunity, both Leipzig and this particular development with this fantastic developer, a great opportunity for all investors, whether it's to enter into the market or diversify an existing portfolio where you may be quite long in the UK.
Tom, that is fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Holborn have got a very long-standing record with IPG, and your German prize you brought to us, and you mentioned the numbers earlier on, have all been fantastic and delivered on time and no problem at all. So we love that about IPG. This will be on our website, holbornpropertyinvestments.com, along with other award-winning shows, and it is a show. And obviously Tom's on hand, your guys at IPG are on hand for specific cash flows, whatever you may need. So Tom, thank you very much. I think we kept that within the time limit. Really good to see you.
I'm not sure we did, Chris, and I will. I must improve. I must improve, but I'll get there one day. But everyone knows my passion for Leipzig and Berlin and property investment is such that I do tend to waffle a bit. But Chris, thank you very much for having me. Much appreciated.
Not at all. Thank you, everybody. Good luck. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Vincent. Cheers.